we realised that service was essential factor in making a saleable motor car.
Those first 1946 VWs cost about 5,000 Reichmarks, around £125. In 1948, the factory was handed to the Federal Republic, and the rest, as they say, is history. In almost no time, the VW Beetle became not only a part of, but central to German recovery. Volkswagen symbolized the economic miracle that transformed Germany from demoralization and defeat into a nation that could, in peace, if not in war, challenge and compete successfully with the nations of the world. The Beetle's breakthrough came when the company somehow managed to persuade people that its unfortunate origins were more than compensated for by its performance and reliability.
When people found out that this car, besides looking different, was different in performance, in quality, in reliability, the classic 3 C's or 4 C's, which we then put into the vehicle, continuity, credibility, and people then got confidence into this product. This made it grow more and more on us. It became more and more a human element of the family. As one American once said, it became the member of the family who happened to live in the garage. And the Americans were those who really fell most in love in the initial phase with the Beetle. The Beetle was so contrasting to the dinosaur of the Detroit scene in the 40s, 50s, 60s. So it was a big love affair of the American.
Riding along in my automobile, my baby beside me at the wheel. I stole a kiss at the turn of a mile, my curiosity running wild, cruising and playing the radio with no particular place to go.
The thing about that product was that it was incredibly reliable and incredibly simple, and it didn't go wrong. And because it was incredibly reliable and incredibly simple, it somehow became rather lovable. And everything about it, the noise it made, its bizarre appearance, the fact that it was built, I was going to say like a tank, but that would probably be a rather inappropriate, even unfair observation to make, bearing in mind its provenance. It was certainly built extremely well. All of those things endeared it to people who had been used to absolutely the opposite. And it was then exploited publicly by a brilliant series of advertising campaigns through an American advertising agency called Doyle Dane Bernbach, whose knowledge of the product, I suspect, was minimal, and certainly whose understanding of the nature of the background from which the product derived was more or less nil, which was a great advantage to them.
You've got your functional argument. It works well, the engine's unstoppable. And that's the great VW myth, in a way, that, you know, even if you come back in the year 2000, your VW will start first time, like in Woody Allen's film, Sleeper. And while America was just getting into built-in obsolescence for the first time as a marketing ploy, here you've got a car that's built to go forever.
In the swinging 60s, it was the alternative car of the alternative society. It was not only cheap and reliable, it was somehow cool. The people's car had indeed become a people's car. It had achieved an identity, a personality, the envy of car manufacturers all over the world.
You've owned a Beetle, haven't you?
I have, yes,
What do you
yes.
think of them?
Practically, not a wonderful car. It's difficult to get mended. It's not that comfortable. You don't feel relaxed and at home in it at all. You feel as if you're right up over the steering wheel the whole time. But its character somehow surpasses that. It manages to retain a quality. But I think the myth of reliability still applies. I think if they didn't have that sort of sense of reliability, even if it's only a feeling rather than a reality, it couldn't be a classic. It has to be something that you're going to depend on.
VW had other models which were no less reliable, but the Beetle was by far their best-selling model. By 1972, they'd produced 15,700,034 Beetles, breaking the previous production record held by the Model T Ford. By 1974, the figure had reached 18 million. The Beetle had now been in production longer than any other car. The other models were not a success. The K70, their first water-cooled luxury saloon, appeared just before the fuel crisis. Smaller and more economical cars were called for. Design concepts changed. Hatchbacks caught on. VW had losses of 8 million marks. Critics said they were a one-car company, with that car being left behind by changing technology and changing tastes. After much heart-searching, VW decided to stop production of the Beetle and to look for a new car. The legendary motor car's days as a force in motoring seemed to be drawing to a close, swept away by the promise of the new.
Every good thing comes to an end, we know. When you consider that the Beetle today is 50 years old, the automobile is 100 years old, we are in a time of explosion of engineering knowledge. We have come up with something better. This doesn't discontinue the love and the affection the world has for the Beetle. The world still continues to associate the Beetle with Germany, with us, and with a love affair, with something which made sense, which put people on wheels the world over at a very low price and at high reliability.
Designed by the Italian designer, Giugiaro, who used the same internal dimensions as the Beetle, the Golf was to be another world beater. It became Europe's best-selling small car, passing the million mark after only 31 months in production. The last German Beetle came off the production line in 1978. But will the efficient, if unexceptional, Golf ever replace it in motorists' affections?
I've got a GTR Golf.
and okay, it's a nice car, but I'd rather drive this. It's nostalgic, isn't it?
Enthusiasts still implore VW to restart production of the Beetle in Europe, but the company says it would now cost more to manufacture than a Porsche. Last year, there was a 2-minute silence in the Brazilian factory as the last Beetle rolled off their production line. There's a lively trade in old Beetles, but you can still buy a new one, Just. The people's car is still in production in Mexico, and each year some are shipped to Europe at colossal expense to satisfy devotees who would otherwise be inconsolable.
He gives us very much pleasure, our little Volkswagen treasure. When we asked if he ever felt inclined to go back again to his home near the Rhine, he said 999, and he laughed. He said, this is the place for me.
The Barcelona chair, next week's design classic, was designed for the King of Spain in 1929, is still produced today, and will be available for you to set